Let's see it pop up there in a little bit. And then what I do is when I see it pop up on my page, I share it to a few like light
Other
worker
pages.
groups and yoga groups. Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to get someone who would be interested.
Okay, cool.
Okay. It should be up there now.
Yep, I see it. Okay, so I'm going to share it. Share it to my timeline.
Should I share it to a Pamela Schrodern group? The thing is,
totally, because I'll probably talk about her.
Yeah, I do have a question about the teacher-student relationship in yoga. So
yeah, for sure.
Divine science and human body. I kind of have to be careful because some groups are like private. And
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got 2 people on. Nice. And then I have my iPad in front of me, so if anybody watching, if they have a question, go ahead and post it. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is the 0 Point Podcast. This is episode number 5, and we're joined by my good friend, Jill Farrell today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes.
I normally have a little bit of a bio, but I'll just try to fill it in myself. She's a Kundalini yoga practitioner. That might be how I first learned about you. She's a practicing acupuncturist and herbal clinician as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. What else? She just started doing this thing called the Compassion Prison Project, which we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to open your community acupuncture clinic in Wenatchee, Washington?
Wenatchee.
Wenatchee. Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, well, thanks for joining me. How are you feeling today? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm with you. So what's the worry?
Well, because I'm nervous too. You think you're just feeling my nerves?
No, I don't.
Okay, there you're
but we're going to ride this wave together. So
right.
no problem.
Exactly. Okay, well, let's start to talk about Kundalini yoga because that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'd like to know how you originally found it and why did you make it like your practice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I first learned about Kundalini yoga when I was living in Bloomington, Indiana. At the time, there was a Kundalini yoga ashram there that was really near my house, and a couple of my friends had been going there taking classes. And had said, hey, Jill, they knew I was a meditator and a yogi otherwise. And they're like, you got to try Kundalini. It'll just kind of blow your mind. And I wasn't really interested at the time that they were telling me about it. But eventually I found my way there. Actually, I believe it was either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And I had just gone through a divorce and my kids weren't with me and I was aching about that. And I was like, I'm just going to call the ashram and see if they have a Kundalini yoga class. And sure enough, they did. So I went that night and trudged through the snow. And that was my first experience with the practice. And it was very deep, very powerful.
Yeah. Can you maybe speak to why? Because you're one of the more, I'm trying to think of the word, not disciplined. I mean, I guess disciplined, but you're committed. You're very committed to that practice, it seems. And I mean, I don't know if you still, it's a daily thing. You do it every day, every morning, every night.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of that? And what made you really commit to it?
Yeah, we'll have to dig into the most recent updates
Oh yeah, definitely.
vis-a-vis vis-a-vis my relationship to Kundalini, because there's some big shifts that have happened since January with my Kundalini yoga practice. But back then, my experience with it was really, felt like the merging together with really cultivating the strength of the nervous system
Mm.
through the challenging postures.
Hmm.
And also it had chanting, which I've always loved, using the sound current to kind of connect me with something bigger than myself, my
Hmm.
small self. And it was deeply steeped in spiritual growth
Sure.
and
Yeah.
spirituality. Whereas, I had been doing hatha yoga, and I mean, obviously all styles of yoga have their roots in a deeply spiritual place. But
Hmm.
the way that a lot of yoga was practiced, 20 years ago in the West, unless the teacher really talked about the spiritual aspects of it, it was really quite a physical practice alone. And so Kundalini was like, oh, wow, like it's kind of the marriage of a lot of things that I really love and that speak to me and make me feel connected. So,
Yeah. Uh, so it's been referenced as a technology. Am I right by saying that? That it's kind of looked
yeah,
at as like a technology for the human body?
yeah. So we'll just dive into kind of the most recent controversy around
Okay. You want to talk about Yogi
Kundalini.
Bhajan?
I can't talk about it
Okay.
anymore
Well,
without
sure.
acknowledging.
Let's talk about it.
So yeah, so Yogi Bhajan was a man, a human that that came to the North America in the late 1960s, and
Hmm.
he presented this yoga as a technology. So I'm trying to separate out, at least in some of his words, the kind of spirituality practice with it, with just like the pure, if you do this practice, it's going to change you just like technology changes us.
Hmm.
And so when I went through Kundalini yoga teachers training, there was a lot of emphasis on, this is a technology that can be practiced by anybody regardless of their spiritual beliefs or their religious beliefs or anything like that. And so
Yeah.
that actually resonates me, that message still resonates with me,
Hmm.
even though I've had to, in the last 5 months, 6 months, really dig deep down into whether or not this is a lineage, or if you want to call it that, or
Or
a
like a
mind.
pure lineage. Yeah.
Right. If it, because essentially, Yogi Bhajan, as lots of people who were with him from the very, very beginning, but then kind of discovered what was going on behind the scenes, subsequently left the community and sort of tried to speak the truth, but it was very much kind of they were ostracized
Yeah.
as liars, blah blah blah. Well, a woman who was one of Yogi Bhajan's very closest personal assistants, secretaries, and was very high up in terms of a public figurehead for the organization. She wrote a book called oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the word or the title of the book. It's Golden, Free from the Golden Chain. Man. Anyways,
Yeah. I could look it up if.
yeah. Totally look it up. Anyways, her name is Pamela. She wrote a book. It was published in January, and it sort of started this, when someone has been traumatized, has been abused, and when they speak their truth, it is so important, because what it does is it opens up the doorway for other people, gives people permission to also tell their truth and speak
Yeah.
their truth. And so Pamela really started the most recent wave of that truth telling,
Wow. I have
And
the name of the book if you want me to say it.
yeah, say it.
White Bird and a Golden Cage, My Life with
Yes.
Yogi Bhajan
Yes. Thank you.
by
Thank you.
Pamela Dyson.
Pamela Dyson's. Yeah. I had a little brain blank
Oh yeah,
there.
I don't remember things like that.
So anyway, so for me, that really has made me question, because I'm a social worker by training. I have a value base that's very much steeped in equality and justice and nonviolence. And so having to reconcile this spiritual practice that literally I had practiced every day for
Yeah.
12 years.
Yeah.
And trying to reconcile that with all of the very powerful stories of women who were at one time children and now, adults, and not just women, it was men too.
Yeah. So
And
you were kind of like concerned that you could have picked up something in that mindset that maybe would have led you to abuse your power or something.
no, it's more, who do I want to align myself with?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's about that alignment. Okay.
And if I'm going to talk about Kundalini yoga, because I learned that practice in the mind stream, in the energetic stream of a man called Yogi Bhajan, I experienced that as a moral dilemma,
Yeah.
an ethical dilemma. And
Sure.
so the good news for me, or something that I've just sort of let myself fall back into the cushion of, is that I've always had a parallel relationship with Buddhism.
Yes.
I spent last summer,
Yeah.
I spent 9 weeks at Tara Mandala, which is a Tibetan Buddhist retreat center on
Hmm.
a solitary silent
In
retreat
Colorado.
in Colorado.
Yeah.
So I have in the last 6 months really just grappled with my spiritual practice and trying to be patient with my own process of letting go and
Hmm.
embracing. And I've sort of landed in a place where Buddhism has become more my front and center daily
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how long has that been around? That's a pretty tried and
Right.
tested,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
millennia. No,
millennia.
no,
Yeah. A
I
few
mean,
thousand years.
yeah, the bottom line is really, the way that I experience spirituality is always been present. That energetic stream on the planet has always been present, and humans have sort of kind of grasped hold of that energetic stream and then tried to explain it through different lenses and
Hmm.
different mindsets. And so, it's all the same thing, but it's just different interpretations and different definitions. And yeah, and of course, all the socio-political influences are present in all major,
Right. Yeah.
religions, including Buddhism.
I don't know if there's like a main organization for Kundalini Yoga. Is it called the 3HO
Yeah,
organization?
mm-hmm.
They put out something like a press release, and do you know like
Mm-hmm.
what they said? Yeah.
Yeah, currently there is 3HO and the other organizations that are associated with Kundalini Yoga, as taught by Yogi Bhajan, are working with an organization called the Olive Branch to do a investigation or a collection of all the different facets of what happened.
Mhm.
And I believe they're in the midst of kind of compiling that report right now. It's not a legal investigation. And I believe that that is sort of a separate train that's
Mhm.
also moving down the tracks in terms
Oh,
of reconciliation on the legal level with things.
yeah.
So yeah, so 3HO has, my heart feels for kind of everybody involved, because
Sure.
this is not an easy thing, but my allegiance is always going to be with the people who had the most to lose and the least to gain through telling
Hmm.
their story. And the bottom
Yeah.
line is that's the survivors.
Yeah.
So
Like, what is there to gain from coming out and saying that story, other
that's
than
right.
the truth? But I mean, the truth is so important, so good for them. Like, thank God for them.
Yes.
So, when did you get into Pema Chodron's books and her teachings?
Yeah. So the first really, my first introduction to any kind of spirituality that wasn't Christianity was when I was about 20 years old, and I read the
Oh,
Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Somgyal Rinpoche. And shortly thereafter, maybe I don't know, maybe not shortly thereafter, but that kind of was my introduction to Buddhism.
yeah.
And
So that was
then,
even before you started the Kundalini
oh,
practices. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And then I was a devotee of, and I still consider my a devotee of Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I studied in that lineage for over a decade, as well. And so, but anyways, Pema Chodron, I don't know exactly when I came across her books and her teachings, but I like to call her my my grandmother teacher,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
her voice for me is one of deep comfort.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I can't tell you how many hours and hours and hours I have listened to her
Oh, yeah.
lectures
She's
and
great.
retreats.
You can
And
pick up stuff that's more than just information through
yeah,
watching that. Yeah.
yeah. When I was having really bad bouts of insomnia, the last couple of years, I literally would listen to Pema Chodron as I fell asleep every night. And
Hmm.
so I like to say that she is like kind of my lullaby. Like I had a
Yeah.
Pema Chodron lullaby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I have listened to her, it's really easy for me to relate to her just because, I mean, she was American, born and raised,
Hmm.
right? Yeah. So
Hmm.
there was something special about that because most of the Buddhist teachings that I've heard have been from someone who is, like not American. So
Hmm.
I just like that she was born here and well, not that that makes her any better or worse. It's just like more relatable for me because, I mean, the United States is great, but it comes with its own unique things
Hmm.
that spiritual people need to overcome.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, they're currently I've kind of um, been studying with and practicing with, and I like to call myself a member of the Sangat, called Bhumi Sparsha, and they're a Sangat led by a couple of Western Buddhist practitioners, really radical. One, his name is Lama Rod Owens, and he's studied in the Kagyu lineage of Buddhism, and they are very radical. And so I love that as well, because Buddhism, like all major religions, have structures and hierarchies, and basically formed by men.
Yeah,
and
yeah, it's definitely a
so
thing.
yeah, and then women are kind of like very much second class
Right.
citizens. And so it's been great to study with them and listen and learn from their perspectives about all of that. I think when Pema Chodron first really rose to popularity
Hmm.
as a Buddhist teacher, she was one of the first women to really gain this
Yeah,
mainstream kind
and
of
like
following.
bust through
Yeah,
the dogma of it.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I love to honor, women who have, to Buddhist women who have really kind of risen to that place where all of a sudden we have female Tibetan Buddhist teachers or Buddhist teachers that we can turn to and look to and learn from and have that kind of voice. But it's also true that there were Buddhist women teachers way back in like the 11th, 12th century. You know,
Right, right.
one of my most deeply kind of personal spiritual relationships that I have is with a 11th century Vajra Yogini master, Vajra Buddhist master, Machik Labdran. And she was badass, essentially. And she, like, you know, she practiced and taught a practice called chud, which is basically a charnel ground practice. I experience it, and I'm no Buddhist scholar, so if I'm offending anybody out there with like misinformation, forgive me. But this is my personal experience and my personal relationship with this practice and with Machik Labdron. But anyhow, you know, she walked among the charnel grounds, and that's where she did her practices. She taught other people to get down and into the muck and the mud and the horror and the gruesomeness of life. And
yeah,
for me, that's been a pivotal practice because I've experienced so much pain and suffering and grief and loss.
Turmoil.
Yeah. So anyway, all that to say is it's great to have this merging of, you know, Western Buddhism, you know, Western kind of experience of Buddhism in this context, having women kind of rise. There's another amazing female teacher, Lama Sultram Alioni. She leads or is the founder of Tara Mandala, the retreat center that I was at last summer. So I highly, highly, highly recommend her book, Feeding Your Demons, which is essentially a modern teaching on the chud practice.
Wow. One thing that's come into my mind, because I think we had a conversation one time that there's no floor and there's no ceiling concept.
Yeah.
And I just want to like speak what comes up for me when I like meditate on that. I love the no ceiling part, you know, just like, oh yeah, let's just go up. That's all I want to do. But the no floor part, it's like, damn. Can you help me understand why I feel that way?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can help you understand how you
or just enlighten me to the concept.
Yeah, but I can talk about that concept because essentially it's talking about groundlessness.
Groundlessness.
And so when we feel groundless, like we don't have something under our
feet,
stable, then we grasp for different things to try to get ground under our feet. So all those, you know, it's essentially, I don't like the way I feel right now. I don't like what's happening right now. So I'm going to either avoid it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to numb myself out. I'm going to distract myself. And those are all ways that we avoid the central fact that we live in a highly groundless state.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
It's a hard pill for a lot of people. Humans don't want to live in a groundless state. You know, we want to be able to control. We want to be able to, you know, there's that notion of like
feel comfort and stability.
I just want to go out into the ethers and be all groovy and peaceful and, you know, and like, and so then we interpret it as, that's the spiritual practice, is like being able to kind of shoot out and like connect to the stars and see things and whatever. And more and more and more, I'm like, that's not my spiritual practice. My spiritual practice is walking around the charnel ground of life on earth and trying to lead with compassion, try to feel that in my body, accept that in my mind, and then lead with that compassionate heart.
Yeah.
Like the feeling of like, oh, wow, I experienced this. This is the human condition. So I feel compassion for you no matter who you are, because we have a shared human
Humanness.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, since you're bringing up compassion, do you want to talk about the Compassion Prison Project
Yeah,
that you're involved
sure.
with?
Yeah.
So yeah, just give people an idea of what it is, maybe how you found it, and what you do with it.
Yeah. So the Compassion Prison Project was spearheaded by Fritzi Horstman and a team of volunteers who are actually kind of award-winning filmmakers in Southern California. Fritzi and several people had been co-developing a program in some maximum security prisons in Southern California, alongside with the men who were incarcerated. And out of that was birthed this amazing, essentially like this amazing program to bring awareness of childhood trauma.
Yeah, wow,
And
something that doesn't really get talked about all that much.
right,
Yeah.
childhood trauma awareness, and bring that same kind of awareness to other prison facilities, other communities, other organizations that are sort of dealing with the prison pipeline, so to speak.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
anyways, they you got to check out their website, compassionprisonproject.org. Volunteer opportunities to become a facilitator of Step Inside the Circle.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's it. Seven,
That.
if you have, so the ACE, let me just get into like the adverse childhood experiences, which is
Okay.
essentially this test with 10 questions of, before your 18th birthday, did you experience this as a child?
Wow.
And covers everything from violence in the home to neglect, things like that. And so parents getting divorced is
Mm.
considered an ACE. And so if you have, on the 10 questions, if you have 4 or more yeses on the
Yeah.
test,
Hmm.
you have 7 times greater chance to be incarcerated. So
Wow. Wow.
there's a huge
Correlation.
correlation between adverse childhood experiences and being incarcerated. There's a
Yeah.
huge correlation between adverse childhood experiences and drug use, ACEs, and not being able to kind of have healthy communications and healthy relationships. Health outcomes, 20 years will be shaved off of your life, your lifespan, if you have 4 or more ACEs. So it's a real thing. And
Yeah.
we don't always, in a lot of different treatment areas where we're dealing with people, or myself included, where we're dealing with each other
Hmm.
about our trauma or things not going right in our lives, the focus has tended to be on cognitive, like
Right.
changing your thoughts and cognitive behavioral
Or
therapy.
chemical imbalances or
And,
something in the
and
brain. Yeah.
we have completely skipped over the fact that, oh my gosh, a lot of us have been, not me, but a lot of folks have been traumatized as children,
Yeah.
and we have to get to that
Yeah.
place of
Yeah.
dealing with that.
I don't see any way around that either, but I don't think people are being honest about that, you know?
There's a
Um,
lot of shame. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of silence. We as a culture are taught, and there's other, cultures, of course, that this is true as well, but we're taught to put on a brave face, pick yourself up, stop crying,
yeah. Tough it
and
out and hard work
tough it
will prevail.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, oh, if you just, thought more positively, you wouldn't, your life wouldn't be shitty or something like that.
Right.
And meanwhile, what we know about childhood trauma is that it absolutely affects brain development.
Yeah.
So if
Hmm.
as a child, your brain was damaged through your traumatic experiences, you're that's a real thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Well, I mean,
biology, it's neurobiology,
yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, more people need to be informed of that or wake up to it. Because would you say that there's a big divide of people who are experiencing that and people that maybe were lucky enough to not experience that, and they just don't, they're not, they don't see it,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't think it's a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
I think that's why education and awareness is such an integral part of what the Compassion Prison Project is doing now and will do in the future is, hey everyone, like, let's figure out what your ACE score is. And you can go on to the Compassion Prison Project's website and you can take the ACE quiz and you can figure out what your score is. And what that gives us, that's, again, if this is new information for folks or if they've kind of buried things or, it's just the beginning of a journey of awareness and healing. The ACE quiz is just a conversation piece and a launching point to then go on and continue to be educated on the signs and symptoms and the impacts, and also healing from childhood trauma, which is
Right.
possible because we know that the brain is plastic. Our brains change, and with the right input and the right environment and the right support, our brains actually have the capacity to change over time. But childhood brain development is the most critical time of brain
Yeah.
development.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We have one comment. It's not a question, but it
Yeah.
says, Jill, you're such an inspiration and vision of strength. So there you go. I think you must know this
Thanks.
person. Amber. Thank you, Amber.
Hi, Amber. I can't see the feed right now.
I know. I'm still like trying to learn how to do both. I wish I had like someone else to do, because if I had someone else to do the multimedia, we could go onto that prison project thing and talk while we were looking at it. Yeah.
We can put it in the feed after.
Yeah.
After we get done. Yeah.
Let's see. So do you want to talk any more about and I guess this gets into parenting too, but the teacher-student relationship and how important it is, and maybe, I don't know if you're feeling called to share anything about that. I guess I kind of got this from the Yogi Bhajan section. So
yeah. My views on that have really shifted quite a bit
recently?
in the last
Okay.
6 months, I would say. I'm, so prior to that, I think my leaning, and this isn't better or worse than anyone else's leaning, but my leaning has been towards studying in lineage, studying in context of a teacher student kind of relationship. And but also all acknowledging that I don't need a teacher's, intercession in order to gain access to spiritual streams, if that makes sense. So, but with the Yogi Bhajan thing, I mean, I really, I've really changed. I just, if I come across a teacher who starts talking about, or has a vibe of, let me tell you how it is, or let me tell you how this is going to go down.
Like if there's a teacher that wants you to hand over your authority to them,
your self-agency, then immediately I'm finding myself go, not for me.
Yeah.
And, so that's a condition in my mind, that's a conditioning thing. It's like, we've been conditioned to think of some people know about spirituality and then other people don't. And so let me tell you
Yeah.
about how to be spiritual, or let me tell you about the best way to practice spirituality. And I've come to really embrace the idea that that's just all a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's a power and control dynamic that that I'm not willing to participate in
Yeah.
anymore. Which doesn't mean that I don't still learn from teachers. You know, it doesn't mean
Right.
that
Yeah.
I don't practice and learn and have a beginner's mind and an open mind. It just means that I'm on high alert for any of that messaging of let me tell you how it is, young,
Right. Yeah.
stupid, naive person.
How do you balance, because sometimes I get stuck with this, like when I see the tradition or like the prescription of, you know, do this yoga set for 40 days or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or do this exercise or do this
Mm-hmm.
meditation. At what point do you say like, yeah, I'll do that, but I'm going to listen to what my inner guidance is saying. So my inner guidance is saying to do something a little slightly different.
Right.
Do you find that to be something that's beneficial, or is there benefit in just like, no, this is what it says, I'm going to do it exactly how it says?
Right. Yeah, I think even you and I have like talked about this before, where you know, there's almost like a tension between discipline and also self-agency. You know, kind of listening to yourself, listening to your own truth. I think there are amazingly beautiful, fruitful things that come out of a disciplined, consistent spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are beautiful, amazing, fruitful things that come out of self-agency and developing your own intuition and like, okay, is this my ego getting in the way of continuing this practice, or doing it longer, or working through the discomfort that I'm
Right.
experiencing?
Right.
Is it my ego, or is it truly this is just not right? You know, this just doesn't land with me. And I think that that's just an ongoing conversation that we have to have with ourselves. You know, it doesn't, for me, I have yet to experience landing in some sort of um, opinion about that feels like I just stay there. I don't. It's just a constant, you know, conversation that I have with myself, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't expect that will, I don't know. I mean, we'll see, right? You never know. You never know what's next.
That's true.
Yeah, but that's kind of my perspective on that for now.
Okay. Ongoing conversation then. Yeah. That I can do that. That works. I have like too many questions right now. So let's go to acupuncture for a second. Why were you drawn to setting up a community style acupuncture rather than just being like someone who sees people one-on-one?
I think it kind of goes back to that that part of myself that is really interested in bringing and sharing healing benefits to the most people as possible.
Okay.
And community style acupuncture operates essentially on a sliding scale fee. So in terms of accessibility and with finances and things like that, it's making this powerful tool way more accessible to people. So for example, a lot of private acupuncturists can charge upwards of, I don't know, like I've seen them like $150 a treatment or for a new patient. And community style treats, most community acupuncture clinics are starting around $15 to $25 at the low end, and then kind of going up between, you know, $40 to $50 on the higher end.
Yeah. One of the valuable things that I got from it was that, like, I guess when I first got into healing, I thought I had to like do it by myself, like in a room where it's just maybe me or one other person. But I found value in learning that you can actually heal within a group too,
Mm-hmm.
so that's because that room at the All Life Center that you had. I mean, that was an awesome room. The energy of that room, the container,
Yes.
and then people being able to come in and out, and you trust
Right.
people to like not make a bunch of noise. It's just
Right.
really nice that you can
Yes.
get along with people and do this deep healing when they're right beside you.
Right.
Well, not
I
right beside you, but in the same room.
Yeah, yeah, in a recliner, like napping right next to you. And I think just along those lines, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I experienced that as well, that there's really this container that is created when we all come together. And actually it's nonverbal. Like we don't have to talk about
Mm-hmm.
it. It can just be our presence that brings that healing,
Mm-hmm.
energy into that container. And I also think that there's an equalization that happens in community acupuncture where
Interesting.
it's like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one that needs help.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one that's like
Yeah.
fucking stressed out of my mind and I need
Right.
to chill out. And and I think that to look around a full room when there's, 6, 7, 8 other people also receiving acupuncture at the same time, there's something that's deeply comforting about that and
Mm-hmm.
healing about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I had this conversation with our mutual friend Heidi
Mm-hmm.
Moonwolf,
Yes.
that I was saying to her that like I wasn't talking to people because I felt like all I had to say was about my suffering.
Mm.
And she was like, "Yeah, but you can really bond with people just by kind of expressing what you're going through, like your experience. Not so much like pulling somebody into your suffering or anything like that, but." Yeah, I
Right.
mean, we're in this together, We're all going to have stuff to deal
Absolutely.
with, so might as well talk about it, laugh it off, get through it, that type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just through the sharing of our human experience, which includes joy and includes deep pain and suffering,
Yeah. That's one of the
just through
main Buddhist things, isn't it?
yeah,
Life
just
includes suffering. Yeah.
that's right. Just the sharing of that together, human to human, in and of itself is healing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I experienced that with you. I mean,
Oh,
right? All
oh
the
yeah. Oh,
things,
definitely.
all the
Yep.
things,
Lots of
you
things
know?
and fun times too.
Oh
It
my
hasn't been
gosh,
all.
so much fun times.
So the acupuncture, this is a very simple question, but I'm
Mm-hmm,
sure there's a not simple answer for it.
mm-hmm,
But why is just putting a needle in a spot healing?
mm-hmm.
There's probably maybe a bunch
Um,
of different reasons. Depends on the point. Maybe I don't know.
yeah. No, no, no. I think when a acupuncture point is needled, there's a relationship that's developed between the acupuncturist and the person who's receiving that needle. And
Interesting.
that
Okay.
relationship has its roots in both the ancestry, the lineage of Chinese medicine that goes back to, very, very powerful healers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and it also has its roots in the energetic matrix of what we call human beings. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so the needle itself has a regulating function. So if where it's being needled needs more energy, it's going to do that.
Wow.
If the needle is being placed along a energetic channel or along a point that doesn't have enough energy, it's going to regulate that.
Mm-hmm.
If it has too much, if there's a traffic jam, I like to use the analogy of like a
Bottleneck.
roadway,
Yeah.
like a roadway.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like our roadways have traffic jams and we're like, holy shit, I can't think. Like it's
Yeah.
overload, circuit overload. And then other times like our roads just like they're just a mess. They have like potholes and like they need to be repaved, and it's like the energy is just like not moving through because there's just too, it's just not enough
Have,
integrity.
have you ever had someone that came to you that was like, you would say this person is not energetically open, and then you saw them and they just had this like, wow, now I understand what energy is, and like I understand what deep healing is, or
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting things about that question is, I mean, I have a belief that we are just energetic beings, like period. And so, but our conditioning, our lives have maybe, and our culture has maybe taught us,
identify with
hasn't
the
taught,
mind.
identify with the mind, identify with the physical body, and an alternative view was just never presented or never cultivated. But I think it's inherent in all of us. And so, I have to say, like, some of my favorite people to work with are people who come in and they're like, oh, I'm I'm a triathlete. I like
Mm-hmm.
run 100 miles every week, and my hips are a mess. And then like we start working on the hip pain or whatever it is, and 4 or 5 treatments in, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to like feel like
Feel these
so
things.
relaxed. And
Yeah.
like, I go home after my treatments and like I'm having these amazing conversations with my partner, because I'm
Really
just
open
like,
some stuff up. Yeah.
yeah. And it's not, I don't really see it as it's not my job. First of all, I don't know anybody's healing journey. I have no
Right.
idea. Secondly, it's not really my job to tell them what's going to happen to
Sure.
them. I don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen to them. But when it does, I've learned to recognize it and just sort of smile to myself.
Yeah. And don't
Like,
pat yourself on the back too hard, but just like, okay.
it doesn't really have anything to do with me. I mean, it's just I just put the needles in and let this beautiful energy just like take care of itself.
So did you think that herbs have that potential as well?
Yes.
So yeah, so I'm not as familiar with that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying that you could be prescribed an herbal remedy and it can really open you up from the inside.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it can do the same things that I was talking about in acupuncture,
Mm.
needle doing, and that dynamic. And plants are allies,
Yeah. It's
and
conscious.
they're conscious, and it's just coming at the energetics of the body through a different portal. It's like through ingestion,
Mm.
or I mean,
Yeah.
some people, the topical application of essential
Oh, that's true.
oils
Mm-hmm.
or salves or poultices, things
Mm.
like that. I mean, plant based medicine can be applied externally and it can be taken internally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I have the
yeah.
perfect transition question into our next
Mm-hmm.
topic. Do you think that acupuncture was given to us by extraterrestrials?
Here we
Have you ever heard
go.
that? Have you ever heard that?
Here we go. Here we go, people. Tune in now.
Hard to say.
Okay, first of all, I have no idea. I mean, that would be my answer. I have no idea. My sense is that that to think somehow that humans, the belief that we as humans are the only intelligent life is a very human-centric, self-absorbed belief.
Egoic.
Very, very just like we know what the truth is, and nobody else knows.
Yeah. There's nothing more sophisticated than us.
There's nothing more sophisticated. There's no one smarter than us humans, and I think we know that's BS, right? I mean, don't we? Because we're always being corrected. We're always learning more. We're always so why wouldn't it follow that maybe there's other intelligent life
Yeah.
that goes beyond the confines of, or maybe within the confines, of planet Earth, but
Yeah.
we don't have the consciousness to pick up on it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's why it's such an exciting time, because we've obviously been programmed to think that that's stupid or that's ridiculous. There's no flying saucers or anything like that.
Right.
But it's clear. I mean, stuff is coming out in the news where in Congress they're talking about. I think today, like there was a saucer that we know that is not from Earth. So they're talking about that in Congress now. Finally, I mean, this is exciting.
Wasn't there a video?
Videos and
like
stuff.
A NASA or or on
I think the Air Force.
CNN. The Air Force.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they're just beginning to kind of trickle out this stuff. And I'm just so excited that it's happening now, because who knows what we could learn tomorrow, the next day,
Right. Right.
So what do you think that means for our civilization? Do you feel like we're on the brink of like living like a Star Trek type of world or Star Wars type of world, like where we could actually have spaceships and go up there, or do you see us like being visited at some point?
Yeah. I mean, again, like I have no idea, but what I do know is that things can change minute to minute, moment to moment, day to day, week to week, year to year, century to century. So I don't think any of what you just said is out of the realm of possibility. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Maybe. Are we going to, as a civilization, completely transform the way that we've, lived on Earth overnight? Probably not. But is it possible? And is it in the realm of possibility? I would say yes.
Yeah, it may be more just like mental changes, because when people start to see that there's these official reports, how are you going to say that that's a stupid thought now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's such a. Here's the thing: is asking humans to shift away from very established beliefs is a very unsettling, tricky thing.
Groundlessness.
So I think groundlessness. And it doesn't matter if it's like, COVID, a virus that's asking us to, make all of these mindset changes, or if it's like, oh, P.S., by the way, we have extraterrestrial, intelligent life that just landed, and now they're making themselves known to our limited
and they look like they're humans, but they're not from Earth.
Or maybe not. Yeah. Or maybe they don't look anything like humans.
Yeah. Right. I'm open for anything.
So it's like you said, it's like, that's the beauty of a lot of Buddhist teachings, is it's like you can apply them to pretty much any situation that we find ourselves in. And that's why it's so useful. So talk about being groundless. It's like, oh my God, okay, now this is happening. How are we going to adjust?
Yeah.
How are we going to evolve? How are we going to be open to change and growth and learning? And
we possibly could have been getting contact, but just not in the way that we think. Like it could be some very subtle, like interdimensional type of connection, or through dreams or something like that.
Portals.
Yeah, portals. I was going to say that word. Have you ever seen a portal? I don't want to put you on the spot or anything.
I've experienced energy streams that don't feel like they're earthbound.
Transmissions.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
that's
if
cool.
you've meditated for a consistently for a long enough period of time, or done, other kinds of practices that are using tools that open up your consciousness, like, you become aware of energy streams that are beyond the
Mm,
beyond, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
whether you can call them portals or whatever else, but
yeah. Streams of consciousness. That might be
mhm,
a way that I like to say it a little bit better.
yeah.
Um, so how can we? So practicing meditation, Kundalini yoga.
Mhm.
How does that make us more able to get into those streams? It really just helps us. We got to focus on clearing our mind, and uh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's like it's the journey of self-discovery and learning how your mind works, and learning
Maybe,
how your ego operates in either preventing or promoting an expansion of your
yeah,
consciousness.
that's a good point. You got to know yourself on all levels before
You
you
do.
can go to those
And
higher realms.
absolutely, because the ego is so strong
And tricky.
in us, and tricky and wily, and you know and and it and it's a again, kind of back to the metaphor of having a conversation. Like, it's your conversation with your ego is a lifelong conversation.
Mm,
um and the better that you know how it operates and shows up in your own self and your own life, the more likely you are to be able to get to work with it and move beyond it. um
yeah. Well, yeah. So for some reason, having that, I don't know if I want to call it a goal, but it makes me want to practice more,
yeah,
so that I can really be ready for when these new energies come in, these new transitions come in,
right.
transmissions, not
Yeah,
transition.
transmissions. Yeah, transmissions.
So you must have some experience with communicating with something that is non-physical.
Hmm.
Because I had a conversation with on the second episode with Daria, who's a psychic medium, and she
Hmm.
was talking about just communicating with non-physical beings,
Hmm.
and how can you even know that they're telling the truth? How can you really
Mm.
know that they're on your side, or
Hmm.
if they're benevolent, non-benevolent? Do you have
Right.
any experience with that, or
Yeah, but it's not something that I focused on, mostly
right?
because of what you just described.
Uh,
In terms of uh how do you really know what is what in that kind of playground?
yeah,
So it's just not something that I've really been drawn to deeply explore. I'm much more interested um, in my own mind,
mm,
and how my own mind tries to explain my own consciousness and experience. And if my mind and my consciousness is experiencing something as other, or something that I'm seeing, or something that's if you want to
hmm,
call it like another being, I see that all as the same mind, universal mind stream.
interesting. Yeah,
Um, and so that's not to negate any other person's experience, or what they've chosen to cultivate in terms of a way to explain or help or whatever. It's just that's been my
yeah.
my
I mean, that could
focus.
be the whole mind thing, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing what's your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stuff that we see externally,
Mm-hmm.
that's not your mind, or everything has to come through your mind.
I think it's all your
So,
mind.
so everything that you can experience is your mind.
it's
So
it's
even if you would experience God, you would say he's using your mind to communicate with you.
Well, I don't think it's the little mind, right? It's the
Oh,
so it's this. it's the great sky, it's the
Consciousness. Yeah.
vastness, it's the emptiness, it's the, that's what I'm talking about.
I see.
And so for me, I when things condense down into a density that is including form, for me, I've interpreted that as my mind, my Jill's mind trying to condense something into form so that I can understand it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever the message is, or whatever the conversation is, or whatever the insight is, that's why it condenses down into a form. And so inherent in that belief, which is just my belief, that's a smaller mind. It's included in the big mind, but it's a result of me trying to condense it down to a form that I can understand.
Interesting. Yeah, different levels and how you can perceive them. I love that conversation. I don't have much to like say. I'm just curious, I just have questions. I don't really have anything to report.
I mean, I don't know either. These are all just my limited beliefs based on my limited understanding of my own human experience, So.
Well, I love that you share your humanness with me, and that you accept me for being human. I love you, Jill.
Same. I love you so much.
Well, is there anything else you want to let people know, or you feeling good, feeling complete?
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been great to just shoot the shit with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you come back on.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, sounds
Anytime.
good.
All right.
Have a good day.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bye, guys.